Hey, happy Wednesday, everybody. There's going to be people that are going to be joining us as we're actually live, right? We're not recording, but many of you will also see this recorded on YouTube. And something I've been dedicated to for a long time is not only obviously selling homes, that's what we do, but we like to give back to the community. There's a lot of things we like to participate in. In the past, we've connected with March of Dimes, and we still do a lot of work with various organizations locally, Wildwood Soup Kitchen and some other things. But recently, last couple of years, we were really looking for something that made a lot of sense to the community. And even in the past, we've done St. Jude's as well. Alzheimer's has been one of those things that has affected our community for many, many years. Obviously, being in a 55 plus, mostly 55 plus community, felt like that's a really big deal. And it's not, I'm actually uncomfortable bragging about it, but we did raise $9,200, 90. Let's see, what is this, Steve? 92.
$9,245.18.
Yes, yes.
Wow. 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 I, Glenn, I just can't thank you guys enough. This has been a really special year for you to have done this. Um, I think it comes as no surprise to people that fundraising for all nonprofits was down over the last 2 years. Our events, many of our events got canceled. Uh, people just were thinking differently, and for you to make that sizable donation um, makes a real difference. And let me tell you what that does. That means that a researcher working at uh, possibly a Florida hospital, right, or one of our universities right here, because we have um, 4 or 5 universities in Florida that we give grants to for researchers. Now, I mean, you all know the big pharmaceutical companies are raising money and trying to do research, but the truth is the real breakthroughs are coming from the young people and the professors doing research at the university level, because that then gets bought by the pharmaceutical companies and they take it and do something big with it. So a lot of this money goes right there. It goes right to, without that money, some university professor doesn't get his research grant, and that means they don't take the top of their neurologists and go to work. So it's an amazing thing. We are also at a really special time in the history of Alzheimer's. We waited 100 years since Dr. Alzheimer's discovered this disease to come up with one drug that made a cognitive difference in people. One drug. And we did it this year. It was approved by the FDA. It's now called Aduhelm. It was aducanumab. My wife was in the trial. It helped her. I think it added probably 5 years, maybe more, to her active cognition. I mean, how cool is that? Um, so we've, we've reached a tipping point where stuff's starting to happen, where every dollar we get today sits on top of all those other dollars, and you multiply the effect. You get this snowball rolling. I mean, for 100 years they've done research on stuff that just didn't work, and all of a sudden we've got some that does. We even have some ways of detecting the disease that we never had before. We've got a blood test coming. We've got an eye test coming. Your eye doctor's likely to tell you that you've got like your eye doctor might tell you now that you've got glaucoma coming or cataracts. In my case, your eye doctor might start telling you that you ought to see your neurologist. And here's the magic thing. Most of us know of Alzheimer's as an old person's disease because it doesn't show up until people are, usually in their late 60s, 70s, and 80s. But the truth is, the damage started maybe 30 years earlier. And so if we're going to cure this, we're going to have to go back and find the people in 20 years early, maybe, and start them on medication so they don't end up where we are. Again, the money you donated is going to that research, so that we are going to, someday, maybe 5 years from now, maybe 10 years from now, I don't know, we're going to look back at this and go, we made a difference. We pushed that thing. I remember when that wasn't possible, or I remember when when Steve Waterhouse first told me that we might do this, and here we are with that thing happening.
Preventative. We're really talking about preventative actions here.
Yeah, for maybe the first time. And it's, you're in a neighborhood in the Villages where roughly 1 in 10 villagers has or will have Alzheimer's. Now, that's an enormous number.
And we talked about this a couple of years ago when we started thinking about partnering together, and it was one of those things like, wait a second, that's a major deal. Like, there's probably not anything else that we can think of that's going to impact our community more than this. And that's why we're really talking about it, because 95% of my videos are obviously real estate related. Occasionally we have people that are impacting the community, and something that's impacting our community is obviously Alzheimer's. So that's a big deal. So you know what I love? I love doing these videos so differently. In fact, we never introduced you, Steve. So Steve, tell us. I love that, which is great. It's just like, I think it's perfect. So for the people who can be watching, it's like, who's this Steve guy? So who is this Steve guy?
It's because you and I have these conversations so easily and so readily, and it's so much fun. Yeah, I am the chairman of the board of the Alzheimer's Association for Central and North Florida. I am also on the State Health Improvement Plan dementia group, helping the governor and his group come up with better ways of helping people with Alzheimer's. And I'm chair of the walk to end Alzheimer's here in the Villages. So I've got a few things, irons in the fire, but, like with most diseases, you don't pick your charity, they pick you. In my case, my wife was diagnosed about 7 years ago with Alzheimer's. Fortunately, she got into a drug trial and it did well for her. She's out today doing something, ladies' lunch for her golf group or something. So
now, could you have thought about that? I mean, think about that. I mean, maybe even, a year ago, 18 months ago, do you think that would have been possible?
I don't know. And I can tell you that when we got the diagnosis, we figured that by now she would be in a memory care center, or possibly worse. And so, but she's not. We just got back from a 4-day trip in the motorhome. She's off doing her own thing. She took up golf this year, and turns out she's a natural. She gets her driver right. She actually loves her driver and puts hits greens and regulation more than I do. Really embarrassing. But so life is really good. A lot because of the research that was done into this new drug. She's one of those people that kind of hit the jackpot. That drug was right for her. It wasn't right for a lot of people. It was right for her. The researchers at Mayo Clinic said that they'd waited a whole lifetime to tell one person that their cognition had improved, and she was that person. It was a pretty exciting day for them and for us.
Super exciting.
So yeah, I think, when I run into somebody like you who says, I get it, I get why we ought to do this, that this is something that affects so many of the people around us. I mean, from a practical standpoint, a lot of these people are getting ready to downsize their house and buy another house from you just at the time they go into memory care. Well, you don't rent memory care, or you don't sell that. That doesn't do you any good. If we do this right, from a pure selfish standpoint, I hope someday this increases your business. I hope these people are alive longer to buy another house and go out to restaurants more and buy another car. And, I hope that a lot of our sponsors someday will see a real benefit from this, and because these people are living longer and enjoying life.
Steve, I'll tell you this, just, really from the bottom of my heart, really my heart is, if we have a small part in getting a solution for this terrible disease, that's enough. It really
You've already
big
passed
deal.
that, my friend. This is, you've done this now for us a couple times, and this, your annual focus on this disease, really, 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 really makes a difference. And I think people don't understand how much, how important local business is into charities like ours. People like you who decide to put your energy, your time, your resources behind this. You could do a lot of things. You could hire a couple more salespeople and spend the time training them. You got a lot on your plate. Anybody that's ever run a business your size is a busy person. But to decide that this is where you're going to do it with really no hope that there's anything positive coming back to you on it, except that you're a good citizen. People like you make an enormous difference for us. And there's
doing thank you, Steve. Look, doing the right thing is always the right thing. It just is.
Yeah.
Just right. Like that's something we should do. And really, I want to make this about a more awareness about what's happening in the community, what's happening with Alzheimer's. It's actually great news that there's some inroads.
Yeah.
It's really exciting. But something we've talked about in the past, which is something a lot of people don't think about unless you're in your shoes, is being the person on the other side and going through what you've had to go through, which you would, obviously you would do again. I mean, you for better, for worse. I mean, it's just, you do it. But it's ridiculous. And I've never gone through it, but I have with my mother with cancer. But
yeah,
when you have to take care of people, this is, can you talk about what, and it might be a little bit emotional for you, obviously, but can you talk about what that's like to actually go through side?
It requires you to take on an entirely different style. I mean, I didn't go to college to become a nurse, to be because I was a warm, caring person and loved and had the patience to sit by somebody's bedside. I became an entrepreneur because I didn't have any of that. So I don't. I'm a somebody tells me something stupid, I tell them it's stupid and get on. It's I don't have that kind of patience. That's not natural for me. And so as Gina started to forget things and to have to be reminded about things, my first reaction is to say, hey, I already told you that. Or how many times do I have to tell you that? What you learn with Alzheimer's, and this is something that all of us can learn. If you want to be kind to someone with Alzheimer's, tell them the fourth time, just like you told them the first time.
Mm.
So Gina says, what's for dinner tonight? I say, chicken. An hour later, sometimes 2 minutes later, what's for dinner tonight? Oh, chicken. What's for dinner? Chicken. It's of no value to say, honey, don't you remember? I said chicken. She doesn't remember. Of course she doesn't remember. So why would I say, don't you remember? I asked her one time, I said, honey, if you tell the same story the third time at dinner, do you want me to kick you under the table and remind you? And she said, no. She said, first of all, it won't make me any better. Second of all, it'll just make me feel bad in the moment. And why would we want to do that? She said, anyway, all of our friends know. And that's all true. And so I think, for me, it's been a real learning process of slowing down and relaxing and just understanding that, you know, if this is really all I have to do to accommodate and make her life, you know, my job as a caregiver is to keep her life as normal as possible, as long as possible. That's it. That's why when she was diagnosed, I spent a month trying to figure out how to replace her in my business. She was the most important person in my business. She was the person that had my back in 5 businesses in a row. And all of a sudden, she couldn't have my back. She couldn't remember what we had to do. She was dropping all kinds of stuff. So I spent a month trying to figure out, okay, how do I fire her and replace her with somebody else? And finally, one day, I walked into my admin's office and I said, I got bad news. I said, I've decided that we need to sell the company and Gina and I need to retire. And she looked at me and she said, she kind of laughed. I thought that was a funny reaction. She said, we've all been waiting for you to figure out that was your best option. You know, we finally realized that the only thing we could control is what we did with the time we had left. And so by retiring and coming to the villages and doing the work we're doing with Alzheimer's, but also just going on the trip we just went on, and we go on lots of them. Gina always wanted to see all the national parks. And so we're going to see all the national parks. And it's really what she wants to do. And I love it. We have a great time with it. So I think, you know, caregivers, depending on their natural style, have an easier or more difficult time dealing with this. For me, it just really took taking a deep breath and slowing down and understanding, if this is what I have to do to be able to get her through this phase, okay, let's do it. You know, I've actually kind of laugh at myself as I do it and say, you know, I'm getting pretty good at this. But you know, I know it gets worse. I counsel a lot of people who have Alzheimer's and who are caregivers with Alzheimer's. Truth is, caregivers of Alzheimer's have a high probability of dying before the person they're taking care of. The stress can be so high that it causes suicide, that it causes other health issues. And so I tell caregivers, number one, take care of you. You know, if you used to go out for a walk every day and now you don't think you can because you take care of this person, then you better get somebody to come in and watch your spouse while you go take care of a walk. Because if you can't take care of you, you can't take care of them. It's very, very, very important to take care of you. You know, it's like the old thing on the airplane, you know, put on your mask before you put on theirs. Well, that's every caregiver has to understand. If you don't put on your mask, you can't take care of them. You can't. And so I think that's my biggest message. Whenever I get together with somebody who's people call me and they want to talk about, you know, what do I do next with my spouse? I said, first of all, let's talk about you. Your spouse is on a journey that we can't control. Your spouse is on a journey that, you know, for the most part is just going to go the way it's going to go. The question is, how well are you going to be able to do what's necessary to help them navigate that path?
So if somebody's out there that is experiencing this, and obviously you've handled it as best as you possibly can. I love the advice that you just gave, because that's not just for this disease. That's you're speaking life lessons, like real truths.
Yeah.
That, you know, whatever you're going through, this is the way you should handle it. Are there can you speak about specific techniques or specific things that you had to do, whether it's, you know, breathing for a certain period of time, you know, being away from that person, maybe for a little bit, you know, that type of thing? Can you speak about some specific steps people can take?
Yeah, I'm an avid bike rider. Matter of fact, we just got back from the Senior Games Championships this week, and Gina and I went together and we did 4 races. I had a lot of fun. I keep that up. I'm going to keep that up. No matter what, I'm going to keep that up, because that's the thing that keeps me centered. If I can keep going keep training and doing the things I do in cycling, I know that That's the thing that keeps me focused on me and me healthy so I can take care of her. I know with I have taken over the finances for the family. I took what she did for years. I never wrote a check. I don't even know how to pay a bill. I do now. We never had a late fee until I started taking things over. now, now we've had a couple, and I also took over her medications, and I took them over before I needed to. And this is one of the lessons. If you wait until it's necessary, then you can't have a conversation with the person about why you're doing it. It's too late. But if you do it early, and you say, I'm taking this over. I'm taking all your medications as I did. I'm putting them in. I bought a bright orange Home Depot plastic toolbox and a lock. And I took all her medications. I put them in that and I locked it, and she doesn't know the combination. And I did this a couple of years ago. And I said, I'm starting now to take over all of your drugs. And the reason I'm doing it is A, I need to get good at it. B, I don't want to find out we didn't do it soon enough when we have a problem. Mm-hmm. Most people who are on Alzheimer's are old enough to have other comorbidities. So they might have heart disease, they might have diabetes, they might have stroke issues, they might have several other things. They die of the other things because they forgot to do these things. You know, I had a lady call me recently, and she said that she was diagnosed with diabetes. She's on insulin, and she is also recently diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and she was concerned about what she should do. And I said, well, who can take care of your insulin needs? Who can manage your medication when you can't? And she said, no one. My husband really couldn't do it. He'd forget, and it wouldn't happen. I said, then here's what's going to happen. You're going to die of diabetes. You're not going to die of Alzheimer's. You're not going to live long enough. Your medication is going to get so screwed up because you aren't going to remember it, that the diabetes is going to get you. Now, what a shame. So what I said is you need to find some way to have that managed. Now, I didn't say manage that. I said have that managed. Someone else who has the cognitive awareness has to be able to manage that for you. So, you know, people think, well, if I just write myself a schedule, then I'll remember that. Here's the scary thing about Alzheimer's. You know, when you put a note on the refrigerator for your spouse that says your lunch is in the plastic container inside, you come back 4 hours later and they haven't had lunch and they're hungry and they want to know where it is. And you say, I left a note on the refrigerator, and they say, what note? Well, that yellow one right there. Oh, I had no idea what that meant. The note said your lunch is in the plastic container with the red top, and they couldn't take that information and figure out what to do with it to get their lunch out. So logic people like you and I think that we can logically control these people. You can't. That part of their brain is gone. And you need to understand that it is much more hands-on. It's much more direct to take care of it. So when we start thinking about medications and other things, somebody has to take care of this.
So what happens in that case, Steve? And you kind of touched upon this, and I see Snowbound have this question, like some villagers don't have family nearby.
Yeah.
What happens? What can be done?
Well, okay, so you don't have family nearby. Then you can hire people to come in and do that. You can hire people to come in a couple times a day and help you with your medication and look after you if you like. Some people have people actually living in their house full time watching after them, and that comes to some people. You can move into assisted living where you're living in an environment where there's someone right there to come knock on your door, 3 times a day when your medication's due, and take care of that for you. But you can't You can't live by yourself without support. You can't. You will die of these things. So, it's I have so many people who come for who call me, and they've waited so long. They've waited too long to go get help.
Hmm.
And I can find them help. There's lots of places you can get help. The first place you go is alz.org. That's the Alzheimer's Association. alz.org. Now, on that website in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to find the 1-800 number that will get you to the Alzheimer's Association 24/7 hotline. You can call them and you can say, here's where I am. I need help. They will get that message to somebody at the local Alzheimer's Association, and they'll give you a call and they'll help you. You can call people like me, and people see my name and stuff in the newspaper here. The Daily Sun's been really good to us. And they call me. I can't manage their care, but I can connect them with someone who can get them to the right people. So I think those are you need to be proactive early. Don't say, well, I'm gonna take care of myself until I can't. Well, this is a memory, this is a neurological issue. How will you know when you can't? You, you won't know. You won't know. You'll Gina said to me when Gina was first diagnosed, I remember her saying to the researcher at Mayo Clinic, she said, I'm afraid. And the researcher said, you shouldn't be afraid. There's not really nothing we can do, but so you should just, don't worry about this. She says, I'm not worried about me. She said, I watched my mother go through this. She said, I know I'm going off into my happy place. I'm worried about my family. I'm worried about my kids and how they're going to deal with this. And so she knew that she wasn't going to be able to manage herself, that somebody else was going to have to take this on. And that's really the key. I stress, if you don't have children nearby, maybe you need to go move nearby them. And if that's not possible, then you need to start thinking about memory care, assisted living, having people come into the house a couple times a day, whatever it takes, somebody who can manage your care. You also need to say to your doctor, when I come to you and I appear not to be able to take care of myself, here's who you call. Because if you're by yourself, I go to every one of Gina's doctor's appointments with her, every one, because she won't remember what the doctor told her 2 minutes later. So somebody's got to manage all that. But what if I wasn't there? Again, that's where you go to your doctor and you say, listen, I've got this. I need help. Somebody's got to help manage me. And sometimes your doctors can help you. Doctors actually, in most cases, aren't really good at that. And that's why we go to some of the specialty groups that are around here. The Villages has several of them, companies that specialize in finding people to come in and spend time with you during the day, help you with your medications or whatever, as a bridge before you need to go to assisted living or memory care. So
can you talk about that, Steve? Can you talk about like those particular people that you think have a certain gift or a certain specialty, maybe some people you bumped into would be a good contact?
Yeah, there's one of the organizations around here is called My Senior Living Options, which is a really good organization that I've turned to many times. And then you can just go to My Senior Living Options, their website, just Google it, and give them a call. They can help you with everything from somebody to come just help get the house in order once in a while, all the way through someone who can help with more advanced issues, and as they just did for someone in our family, help them find a new place to live in an assisted living facility where they can get the resources they need. Companies like that are experts at this. They They know the questions to ask you, so they know to point you, they can point you in the right direction. You know, you drive down the road and you see all these nursing homes and rehab centers, and they all look kind of the same. They're not. Not only do they have different specialties, they literally have different licenses. Some of them aren't licensed to carry to do certain kinds of things, and others are. So you need to go to somebody who understands this framework and can find you a place where you're a good fit.
So what would be a few questions you would ask? Knowing what you know now, you live with someone, you've got a spouse that is suffering through this. Maybe we're not quite sure. Maybe they have been diagnosed and you're just looking for more care. Obviously, you just gave us a really good option that's fabulous. What are some of the questions you should ask to know that your person's going to be in the right space?
I think if I were to go to a nursing home or memory care center or assisted living looking for a place for my spouse, the first thing I would do is look at the quality, just around like you would look at, any home. Is it clean? Does it smell nice? Are the people nice? Are they attentive? Those kinds of things. But then I would start asking myself, if I'm going to come visit my loved one here, where are my loved one and I going to sit and have a conversation? Where's the space that we're going to be able to still continue to have a relationship? If you can't find a comfortable space in their world, then you're not going to be comfortable going in there, and that's not good. You want to be as comfortable in that facility as your loved one is. So start looking for that. Listen to the questions that the care people ask. One of the interesting things about Alzheimer's is that the more we know about the Alzheimer's patient, the better we can treat them. So, for instance, we had an example of in one of our groups. We had an example of a guy who wouldn't come into lunch, and he was out in the hallway, walking down the hallway, putting one foot right in front of the other as he walked down the hallway. He'd get to the end, turn around, and come back. And the nurse assistant couldn't figure out why. And so she went to her supervisor and said, I can't get Bill to come in. So she went to, and the supervisor went out and looked at Bill and said, "Oh, Bill, are you at work?" He said, "Yep." She said, "I think I heard the whistle blow for lunch. You ready to come down?" "Yeah, good time." "All right, why don't you come down? Let's go have some lunch." Bill was an iron worker. He was walking a beam. And by knowing that about him, she was able to connect with him very quickly. So when you go into a facility, are they asking questions about your loved one? Do they want to know what his or her hobbies were? Do they want to know the names of your kids? Do they want to know, what this person loved doing, sports? Are they trying to understand the person? I mean, I'm less interested in the room they're going to be living in. That's going to be the same almost anywhere. I'm more interested in the quality and the interest of the people that they're going to be interacting with. And if those people are asking deep questions about your loved one, then they're going to care about your loved one maybe almost as well as you might.
I love that. I think that's fabulous advice. I'm like, I didn't know what direction we were going to go in specifically today, but I love that because I think that's super important for everything, right? Like any kind of care. And obviously that's a lot of us are going to be in that boat, especially folks that are living in the villages. It's a real need, and maybe it's with Alzheimer's, but it could be something else. Could be some other need. What's out there for family? I think about like almost sometimes people could use family therapy and somebody to talk to about this. Is there an outlet there?
There are Alzheimer's disease centers around the state that have support. You can Google that and you'll find those centers. There are neurologists around that can help you. Make sure the neurologist you're going to is an expert in dementia. That's that seems like an obvious thing, but I've spoken to groups of neurologists at universities before. I can tell you, most neurologists know nothing about dementia. That's just not the specialty of neurology they went into. So you want to find somebody who knows that and can help you there. Um, sometimes the best people you're going to find are other people who've been through it. Just a friend to talk to who's been through it themselves, who's willing to kind of to have lunch with you or have a cup of coffee with you once a week and just give you some suggestions about what you might want to do next. Sometimes that's all you need is a little bit of guidance. You don't need a doctor every time. You need, think about it. When you brought your first child home from the hospital, I don't know about you, but I can't imagine a day when I was more clueless than that day. I mean, we
I'm still
literally
clueless.
called,
What are you talking
we
about?
literally called the hospital at
Yes.
2 o'clock in the morning the first night
Yep.
because we couldn't find the off button.
Right.
She kept screaming, she kept crying. What am I doing
Mhm.
wrong? I picked up the phone and called the
Right.
nurses because I knew they were there. And they got the desk and I said, what do I do? And they said, well, what's going on? And I told them and they said, okay, take a little towel and put it under her stomach and lay her down on it and then rub her back and wait about 3 minutes and she's going to gas out one end and gas out the other end and go to sleep. Well, they knew that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that she probably had gas and that's the way to make that happen. People who've been through this often can give you sometimes some of those little tips that can make all the difference for you. So having people around you is really important. That's also why you want to go to alz.org because they have a reference area where there's chat rooms where you can go in and you can exchange ideas with other people who are going through the same thing, where there are experts that you can talk to, where you can find people in your area, find more resources. The key is do not do this alone. If I wasn't surrounded by people with the Alzheimer's Association, I don't know what I'd do. My life's really pretty simple because every day I wake up and the first thing I'm doing is reading all the research reports that are coming down from Google on new things that are happening.
Good
I'm
stuff.
really tuned in to
Mhm.
what's going on. Most people aren't. So you got to get yourself tuned in. I like to say that everyone comes to every new disease ignorant. And just admit you're coming ignorant. I don't know what this is. I don't know how to deal with this. I don't know what it'll look like next year. Uh, and so you have to find people to ask those questions of.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. And you don't want to be caught alone, right? Like I think that's the way you said that. I think is perfect. I love that because many times you can find comfort with others that have gone through the experience and they can help. Right? You're
Yeah,
not
and
the only person that's ever gone through this.
yeah, when I had prostate cancer, I didn't know what to expect from this. Your doctor sits down with you for a half an hour and says, if you do this and do that, you might not die. And then he says, have a good day. You
Right.
know, but he doesn't tell you all the little details that you want to know.
Yeah.
And so I found a Facebook group where I could share ideas and share problems and say, well, what's it likely to look like after I have my operation and those kinds of things. And it really felt better. By the way, I'm not a group therapy kind of guy. I hate it, but it works. I I
Learn
really
to
don't
like
like
it,
it.
right?
Yeah, I really don't like it. But I can tell you that you can't stay stupid forever. You're going to have to go and get smart about this somehow. And while there's lots of books and lots of movies and lots of YouTubes and all of those are worth watching, I think having a friend or a counselor or somebody that you can get to on a regular basis to just ask those questions of can make a big difference.
So what's next on the horizon? We talked about some of the research that's going on. What's next locally as far as either fundraising or anything of that nature?
Yeah, we've got two things coming up. We've got in the spring, we'll have the Ride to End Alzheimer's, which is a bike ride. We'll do it here in the Villages. We did it last year for the first time. It's a brand new thing that's going spreading across the country. People can reach out to me at steve@waterhousegroup.com if they're interested. By the way, you can reach out to me at that address anytime, and if I can't help you, I'll direct you to somebody who can.
Say that again, Steve. Say that again.
And then of course next year in the second Saturday in October, we're going to do the Walk to End Alzheimer's again. We just signed the contract with the Villages Polo Grounds, so we'll be back out there again. We were one of the few walks this year that went over budget. We made more money than we'd planned. We did phenomenally well, and of course that means they're going to raise our target for next year. That's fine. We'll make it happen. But I think again, it happens because we're in a target-rich environment. We're sitting here in the middle of ground zero for Alzheimer's. So people get this. Those are two big fundraisers coming up this year, and there's other things going on all the time. There's a group here in the Villages called the Memory Cafe. And again, if you want information on that, shoot me a note at steve@waterhousegroup.com, and I'll connect you with the folks that are running that. And that's a place where caregivers can take the person there with Alzheimer's, and they go for a couple hours and they share stuff, and they have some programs, and they get together for some donuts and coffee, and you'll make some of those contacts that I said are useful to you.
Perfect. Steve, thank you so much. So much wisdom, so much energy behind this. Appreciate what you're doing in a big, big way. Well done.
Glenn, thank you. I can't, what you've done in the fundraising is critically important, but this is also giving us the platform to talk to your customers and those that know you. Really helps us reach, again, many of the people that we're talking to today don't think they'll need us. Next week, they'll go back and they'll play this back to find the email address so they can reach out. So I know if they touch base with you, you'll send them to me, and we'll make it happen. But we're not going to drop anybody. Anybody who needs help, we'll figure out how to get it for you.
Love it. Steve, thank you.
Glenn, thank you. Good talking with you, my friend.